it again. We're going back to Omaha. And it's on to the College World Series Final. The 2015 National Champions.
Welcome into the latest edition of 1186, the podcast, the official podcast of the University of Virginia baseball program. The Hoos are 26-7 overall, 9-6 in ACC play. Another big weekend in conference play. They head to Louisville on Thursday for 3 games starting on Friday. We are joined this week, as we are every week, by Scott Fitzgerald, Andrew Ramspacher, and batting cleanup this week, the former All-American catcher here at UVA, now back with the program. Graduate assistant, is that right? Is that your official title, John?
I guess it would be undergraduate assistant.
Undergraduate assistant. Okay, student assistant. John Hicks is here with us. John, of course, as we mentioned, former All-American catcher, former All-ACC catcher, got drafted by the Mariners in 2011 in the 4th round. Spent time in the big leagues with Seattle, with the Tigers, and with the Texas Rangers. Now back here with the program this year. And, well, John, let's start right there. What has it been like from your perspective being back inside these walls here at now Dish Room Park? It was Davenport Field when you were here, but just being a part of this program again and watching how this season has unfolded to this point.
It's been really fun. As soon as I I guess this could be my retirement video because I never officially announced my retirement.
Breaking news.
All right. Ratings are going to go through the roof on this one.
So as soon as I finished up playing, I knew I wanted to come back and finish my degree. And I had talked with Coach Mack and Coach O'Connor about potentially helping out while I was finishing my degree. So I got on the phone, gave both of those guys a call, and kind of talked through the process. And I didn't have to take classes in the fall. So Coach wanted me to be around the team, though, and spend as much time up here as I could. So I'd stop in 3 or 4 times a week and get to know the players and kind of figure out what exactly they wanted me to do. And then once I started class, I could kind of officially be here and interact with the players and work in the cages and things like that. And just getting to know the guys on this team, they're super talented, and seeing the changes that have happened to college baseball since 2011, which, it kind of feel like I aged myself. It's been a long time since I played here. But, the changes in the facility, which is incredible, and the staff for the most part is, I guess, 2 guys are still here that were here when I was here with Coach Mack and Coach O'Connor, and a couple new additions, and getting to know Drew and Kirby more has been a lot of fun. And like I said, we have a super talented team. We've won a lot of ball games, and we're continuing to get better week in and week out, which is one of the most important things. And I think being on the other side, seeing the coaches prepare for games, prepare for weekends. And then the thing that I think I enjoy the most is you'll see whenever we're on offense, I'm standing pretty much right behind Coach O'Connor and just listening to him, how he's kind of preparing for things. Like there was an awesome thing that happened in yesterday's game against VCU. We're getting towards the later end of the game. And, Coach likes to do a lot of defensive switches towards the end. And Bobby Wayland goes into the outfield. He moves Didowick over to the left. And the next inning, there's a ball hit down the line. And you see Didowick just race over, make a great catch right on the line. And Oak turns around and he's like, that's why we made that defensive change. Like, that it worked out perfectly. And there was another instance earlier in the year where Coach pinch hit Big Toe, I guess is what we call him, Antonio Perota, and he hits a homer. And I was like, man, you're really good at what you do.
Pushing the right buttons.
Exactly. So getting to see those things, and it's been cool at times. He'll turn around to me and be like, all right, so like if we make this switch, we can do this and this. And he's like, what do you think? And I'm like, that's way above my pay grade. But I was like, everything you said is it works out. Like we can do those switches and the lineup will work out right and things like that. But it's really fun to see those guys, do the things that they're so good at.
So we were talking about it at the beginning. How close are you to completing your degree?
I will finish the end of this month as long as I get above a C- in all my classes, which I'm in pretty good shape right now.
Well, You were going to skip class to come on here, though, right?
I didn't. I
No, we
went to all my
rescheduled.
classes today, and but I'm very close. So when I left, I needed 24 credit hours, I believe, and I took a couple classes online. I took a couple J terms to where I could get to have it in one full semester. So I'm taking 13 credit hours currently, and I turned in a paper yesterday. I have one due Friday, and then another one due next Friday, and then it's final exams, and I'm all done. So
I remember there was a rain delay one of the games. I forget which one, and you were studying for an exam in the dugout during the rain delay. But what has it been like from that perspective? Just, you come from more than a decade playing professional baseball, that time in the major leagues, and now you're a college student again. What has that been like?
I tell you, I'm a better student now than I was when I was playing here. So that instance you're talking about, I was studying for a midterm, and Coach O'Connor comes in the locker room and he's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I got a midterm this coming week, and I'm trying to cram it all in there." And he goes, "Did you ever study at the ballpark during before a game when you were playing here?" And I was like, "No, that never happened." But you know what? I have a different perspective. And I try to do as much work throughout the week while I'm here before practice and things like that. That way, when I get home, I can be a dad, which is my most important job, and a husband, and take care of my family and spend time with them. So if I can get as much done while I'm here and in between classes, then I have more time for them. So
as an undergraduate, do you have any guys on the team that you have classes with, or that you can kind of study buddy with?
So the class that I had right before this, it's international politics in the nuclear age. So I have that class with, I think it's 5 guys. So Shower, Jaxel, Griff, Barker, and Dean are all in that class. So we all sit together, and they're like, "Are you understand what's going on?" So I'm actually tutoring them. I'm trying to help those guys out as best I can. So
you're the group leader there. Yeah, you're following your lead. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
You obviously aren't the first former player to come back during this era. The Brian O'Connor era, to come back and go toward your degree, but also help out with the team. Is that, obviously you've been in the MLB and you play with guys obviously who've played at other big time college programs. Do you think UVA is unique in the sense of like how open they are to alums for guys coming back and being part of the program? And what's that like?
I think they are. I think you heard a lot about when Tulowitzki went back. Was it to Oklahoma State? Is that right? And it was a really big article about it and kind of how he wanted to give back. And when I read that, I'm like, man, that's like old news for UVA. We've had a ton of guys come back, and I got a lot to live up to, because when Kevin Arrico came back, we won the national championship. So I got to try to match him. And Stephen Proscia, who is one of my best friends, he was my roommate when I was here, and one of the groomsmen at my wedding, he came and did it, and Danny Holton. And I think it speaks volume to the coaches here and the relationships that they create with the players. And, guys want to come back and be a part of it because they know how special it is. And, I was able to play for, I guess, 13 years professional baseball, and I was super blessed, super fortunate to get to do that. And, I learned a lot. I learned a lot here, and then I learned a lot in pro ball. And I have a little bit of a different perspective that, these guys that are playing, I was in this program, and, I had the dream that all those guys have, and that's to get drafted and play in the big leagues. And, I was very fortunate enough to get to do that and to give back and try to help these guys get to that goal is special. And, just getting to talk to hitters when, things go up and down. And, I told one of the guys yesterday, I'm like, look, man, I struggled plenty, and the worst thing you can do is overthink it and try to change things that don't need to be changed. I was like, most of the game is right here between your ears. It's so mental. And if you have faith that what you've done, in preparation for this game and for this at bat. And being able to use that in the box is huge. And just being able to remind those guys of that. And, I've told stories. I told them that, the first day we had team meetings, and Coach O'Connor was like, I want you to introduce yourself, say who you are, where you're from, and just a little bit about your career. And, I told him, I said, look, guys, I'm an open book. If you have any question about anything baseball related, life related, school related, anything, come talk to me. I'm happy to kind of go through it. And if you want to hear a story about playing against your favorite player or with your favorite player, I'm honored to get to do that and form a relationship with these guys.
Was Mac more intimidating on your first day as a player here, or on your first day as a member of the coaching staff with him?
It was definitely as a player. Okay. But I will say I've done things here, with the staff where I've gotten the wrath of Coach Mack. You didn't turn the machines off, or he still gives it to me plenty. So
he keeps walking through too. I think he wants to hear what you have to
say. Yeah, and I can take it a little bit better, but let me tell you, he's still very, very intimidating.
How different is it though? Just how would you contrast what those guys, Oak and Mac, and I get, Case is gone obviously, but what it was like, what they were like as coaches compared to what they're like now? Because I remember we've talked to both of them on here about how their coaching approach has maybe evolved and grown a little bit over their 20-some years here. What is it like from your perspective to see who they were when you first got here as a freshman to who they are now that you're back here, 15 years later?
Well, I tell the players all the time that we had it way harder than they do, and that they get fed with baby spoons. But and they just call me the old guy that it was so harder in my time, that whole deal. But it's definitely different. I just think the whole landscape of baseball and everything has changed so much since that time. I still think they're amazing at creating relationships. They're amazing at creating, helping guys become men, which is arguably the thing that this program does best. It gets guys, most of these guys, I guess a quarter of the team, half the team will get to play pro ball, maybe a little bit more. I'm not sure. I think we had 8 or 9 guys drafted one year, so that's a quarter of the team. And, if half these guys get to play pro ball, that's awesome. But, everybody in this program is going to have to learn how to become a better man, eventually a better father, a better husband, and all those things. And what these guys do is prepare you for that and for life. And when you go get a job, how to attack every single day. But just them as men, I mean, they're incredible. But in seeing the other side, like I said earlier about Coach O'Connor, and seeing how he's thinking through a game, you don't, as a player, you're not thinking about that at all. You're preparing for your at bat, or you're preparing to go out on defense and how you're going to help the team win. And you're not thinking about all the things that are going through their head. I have to make this pitching change. I have to make this defensive replacement and things like that. But those guys are thinking about it constantly, and it seems like they pull the right strings every time. And it's amazing that they're so prepared for every situation that can come up in a game. But I had a great relationship with those guys when I was a player here, and I knew that I could go talk to them about anything. And, they knew when it needed to be serious. They knew when it was a time that we could, laugh and have fun. And, they still do that today. And they tell their jokes, or they, if somebody's doing something that they're not supposed to be doing, they're going to let them hear about it, but it, as a player, that when they come on, they get on you for something that you're doing, it's out of love and out of, what can we do to make this program better? And by letting someone, slide by, not keeping the standards, it's unacceptable, and they're going to let you know that.
John, you were a guy that, this program's kind of built on players that have versatility in what they do on the field, really everywhere. But how are those conversations like when, hey, in pro ball, they want you to go play first base. You're a catcher for most of the time you're here. How does this kind of program prepare you really to be a versatile player? Because it seems that even some of the guys that are still playing, at the highest level have bounced around in a number of different positions, and you're kind of an example of one of those guys.
Yeah. So when I first started getting recruited by Coach Mack, it was, one thing he loved was that I was a football player, a baseball player. I ran some track. I played everything, and I was athletic enough to kind of move around. And he especially used to. I think there's quite a few football players from high school on the team now, but that's something Coach Mack loved. And having that background of playing other sports and moving around, I think, was huge for me. And my first year, I get on campus or on ground, and I'm a catcher only. Like I think I played maybe one game of third base in high school. And I'll never forget, we're preparing to go to Florida State. It's going to be opening weekend of ACC play. And Coach O'Connor walks up to me and throws the first baseman's mitt at me. And he goes, "Hey, go take some ground balls. You're starting Friday night at first base at Florida State." And I was like, all right, giddy up, let's go. So,
yeah.
We got right to work and tried to figure out everything that went into it. But I think the best thing about being a catcher is where everybody else is supposed to be. So you're the guy that can see every player on the field. And so having that background of knowing kind of, the first baseman's supposed to be here, like, all right, that's where I need to go. And then being at first, Coach was like, hey, if the ball's hit hard at you and you got to drop down and block it like you're a catcher, do it and flip it to the pitcher. So, I got introduced to first base here, and I did it a lot my first 2 years. And then my third year was mostly catching, but, I think I still played a few games out there. And I mixed in a couple games in the outfield while I was here. So, that versatility started here. And then, but then once I got to pro ball, I stopped playing first for my first, I think, 5 or 6 seasons. And then once again, I'm in AAA with Detroit. And actually, I guess my first time playing in the field, I made my debut in the big leagues at third base with Seattle because of an injury, which that was unexpected. But then I'm with Detroit, and I'm had a good spring. I'm playing well in AAA, and the team's very good. I think we missed the playoffs by a game that year. And so we have a really good team. And I'm, like I said, playing well, and all of a sudden Miggy gets hurt. Well, I'm one of the few 40-man roster players that's in AAA that, is a position player. So they I get called up. We go to Minnesota, and I for some reason we have like an 11 a.m. game in Minnesota. Well, I hadn't taken a ground ball all spring. I hadn't taken a ground ball all AAA. I show up in Minnesota, and they're like, hey, we're not positive, but if Mickey goes on the DL, you're starting at first today. And it's like 9 a.m. And I'm like, all right. So I run out, take ground balls. And, just being able to take everything in stride. Like, I don't care where I'm playing. I just want to be in the lineup. I want to be able to help the team win. And, that's a mindset that's taught here. Like, you have to do your part, and that's the standard. And go out and help each other get better and help each other win.
A great lineup in college. You touched on this a little bit earlier, but a great lineup in college baseball in 2011 looks and has numbers that are a lot different, I feel like, than what a great college baseball lineup looks like in 2024. And Oak, on our last episode, kind of detailed, gave some reasons behind the offensive explosion in the game and stuff like that. How have being on that lineup in 2011 that featured a bunch of big leaders, and now being here for this lineup, which is putting up, again, crazy numbers, how have you seen Coach Mack and his staff adjust to the advancement in the game, and why do you think this lineup is as good as it is?
Yeah, that's funny. Coach Oak and I actually talked a little bit about this yesterday. There's definitely some changes in the game that have led to the offensive explosion. And kind of like I said earlier, the guys on the team love to say, "Oh, you're just an old guy that saying it was harder when you played, all that. But so, I mean, and I'm sure Coach O'Connor hit on it, but like with the strike zone shrinking, I think there's a serious epidemic on velocity over command and control. And I mean, you're seeing a little bit of that play out in the big leagues right now with all of these arm injuries to big stars. So you see the offensive game plan of, all right, the zone's smaller, guys are throwing less strikes, so we're going to shrink the zone and we're going to command the strike zone how it's supposed to be, right? And in college, when I was here, it was more of, all right, the strike zone in the big leagues is this. Well, now you add a couple inches on each side. That's suddenly the strike zone in college. So you hear Mac a ton, hey, like, you know, command the zone and you got to stay in your strike zone and all of that. I can't give away Coach Mac's hitting tip philosophies as we talked about earlier, but and then, you know, but you see it throughout college baseball. The walks are crazy. And, you know, our lineup as a whole, I mean, from top to bottom, I mean, you look throughout, most of the guys are hitting over 300. Quite a few guys are hitting up around 400, and everybody's on base percentage is way up there. And the ball flies out of here a little bit better, in my opinion, even though that I could be a little biased, but you know, the change in baseballs too. I mean, you see way more home runs in the big leagues now compared to 10 years ago. And a lot of that is that the switch in ball, you know, how hard the ball is and the seams being shrunk down. But, you know, as a position player, I love a friendly hitting environment, but as a catcher, I want to get all the strikes that I can. So it's a double-edged sword for me.
I wanted to take you back to 2011. I had a question about, you were talking before about the amount of preparation that is emphasized here. We've had generation after generation of guys who basically said the same thing you did before, that they feel like they're ready for any scenario, any situation because of the amount of preparation that goes in beforehand. So I was wondering, with that as kind of the backdrop, what was the dugout like in that ninth inning against UC Irvine in Game 3? What is that stuff kicking in, or how would you describe that scene?
Oh man, you can be prepared for anything, but that doesn't mean my heart wasn't racing pretty good in that ninth inning, especially when there was a bunt and I come out and make a throw to second and it's just up the line and it hits off Chris's glove, and then suddenly they got first and second and then a run scores, and I'm like, you know, if I make like a throw right on the bag, they probably don't score and all, you know, so I got all this running through my head. And plus I think I had hit the inning before. And so I was a long ways from coming up and hitting that inning. But you know what? And we get 2 quick outs, and then it's like all of a sudden we get a hit, we get a walk, we get a ball off the pitcher's leg. And, you know, and you always felt like everybody that was at the plate, you know, was going to do it, right? And I'll never forget my first year, we are practicing and we are not having the best practice. And Coach O'Connor lets us know that we're not having the best practice. And we go into the locker room. He's like, hey, everybody in the locker room right now. So we all sprint in there, and he goes around and just tells us what we haven't been doing well, what we need to do better, and, you know, lets us know that it's not acceptable what we're doing. And I'll never forget, he goes around the room and he looks at every person and he goes, it's the ninth inning. We're, you know, down a run or whatever, or tie game. Who do you want at the plate? Well, what have you been taught your whole life? That I want to be in that situation, right? So every single position player says, I want to be in that position. And he goes to the next guy, I want to be in that position, which is a great answer, right? But for the program and the standards of this program, he goes to a pitcher, to Andrew Caraway, and he says, Andrew, who do you want to have up in this situation? And he says, anyone on this team. And Oak goes, exactly. you want to have anybody on this team because you know that they've gone through everything that you've gone through and that they're prepared for this moment. And like when he said it, it's like, boom, like light bulb. And then you get to that situation, and I'm fine with having David Coleman, Reed Gregnani, Chris Taylor, that whole group of guys that came up in that inning. We're fine with having any of those guys up because we know that they're ready for that moment.
Speaking of stories from your time here involving advancing to the College World Series and in the NCAA tournament, this is kind of relevant because Steven Strasburg, obviously retired this week officially. The last time we did have Oak on here, he told that story. It's been told a lot of times about the preparation you guys made in 2009 when you learned that you were going out there and your first game in that regional is against him, who obviously was the face of college baseball at that time, right? Can you give us a little more insight on how Mac got you guys ready to face that kind of velocity?
Yeah, so I don't know when the coaches find out, and I hopefully I get to experience this year, with when we find out as a staff what the regional matchups are and things like that, because it seemed like they knew a day or so in advance. Because when we showed up for selection, is it Sunday, Monday? I
Monday.
forget, but and they have shirts and it says anyone, anytime, any place, and we're like, that's weird. And then we get the region of death, as they call it, and we got to face Strasburg game 1. But from the moment we found out we were facing him, it was like, all right, let's get ready to hit 100. So we had the machines cranked up as high as they would go, and we got as close as we could get to them and tried to hit it before it came out of the machine, I guess. And so we prepared to face that velocity, and obviously guy was really, really good, and we got a couple big hits, obviously led off by Phil in the first, and but we were prepared for it. We knew that we were going to get velocity, and we knew we were going to face the best pitcher in college baseball and the number 1 overall pick, but we didn't let that bother us, and we bought into what those shirts says. It didn't matter who we were playing or where we were playing, and we went out there and we knew we had each other's back, and it was a special run.
How often had you before that or after that been put in that spot to prepare for a pitcher with the machine move closer to you?
I don't think that I had ever really done that. I went to a small high school in Goochland, Virginia that, we were at that time, Virginia was a 3A system, and we were the smallest. We were 1A, and we had a very good team. We won state my sophomore year, and we had 2 pitchers that threw up like right at 90. And for A baseball in Goochland, in Virginia, that was very good. And so I didn't experience crazy velocity until I got advanced in like travel ball and showcase and trying to get recruited. And I can tell you, I never saw a guy throwing 100 miles an hour or close to it until Strasburg, and so trying to prepare for something that you've never seen is a challenge. And but Mac and Oak and those guys, they led us on the right path, and we were prepared as we could be.
What was the moment like? Obviously 2011, the way that ended was wild, but in 2009, the first time, not just you guys, but the entire program got over that hump, over that hurdle. What was the emotion like in that moment? And being a first year guy that year, could you fully appreciate it? Did you get a sense of what it meant to everybody?
Probably not. Obviously Coach Oak and Mac and those guys had been through a lot more of it than I had, or, even the guys that were seniors, Andrew Caraways and things like that. Like they had been through, losing in regional. And, to get over the hump and win a regional, like everybody thought we'd be dogpiling and we'd be doing all this because we finally did it. But it was like, yeah, we were super excited, obviously, like to win a regional and then advance. Like it was great. But we wanted to act like, hey, we've been here before, and the moment's not going to be too big for us. But obviously, college baseball, winning a regional is awesome. Winning a super regional is even more amazing. And when we break it down every day here, it's about Omaha every time, and that's what this program's about, is getting to Omaha and winning the College World Series. And so, I mean, it was crazy to get to go twice, my first and third year, and obviously we didn't win it, which obviously still hurts a little bit, but getting to do that and experience that and doing it with guys that you grow up to be your brothers, and guys that I'm still close with, a lot of them today, and now being back with Coach Oak and Coach Mack, like guys that mean the world to me, is pretty cool.
Where were you in 2015? Do you remember when they won it all?
I do. So I was in Tacoma, Washington, in AAA with Seattle, and Chris Taylor was on the team as well. And I was catching, and I'm like, man, like the game should be getting pretty close to being over. So I had hit the inning before, so I run in. I'm like, let me check and see what the score is. And I open my phone, and Virginia's winning, and there's 2 outs in the ninth. Well, I hear like the crack of the bat, third out of the inning. I'm like, God, crap, I got to go back out there. So I run back out. Well, I'm catching, and I'm like, you can't be 2 places at once, especially when you're catching. And like I had a ball get by me that inning, and I was like, so I come back in the inning, and I'm, after the inning, and I'm mad. I'm like, I'm so mad I can't even go look at the score because, I had missed the ball and something like that. And I think Chris came out and was like, hey, they won. And I'm like, all right, like I can smile now, like I'm happy, and I can move past missing a ball during that other inning. But
were you playing with any Vandy guys at that point?
No, I don't think so.
No. So no, you didn't get to rub it in anybody's face then?
No.
Especially after the year before? Okay.
No, well, I've had a few things rubbed in my face as being a Virginia Cavalier. Like I know when we lost to UMBC.
I figured that was coming up, yeah.
I came into the locker room in spring training, and there was a big UMBC flag in my locker and all that. And I was like, I guess I earned that one, but because I had been talking the Who's up pretty good. So
before we let you go, really quickly, we've been talking a lot about your time back here, completing your degree, your time with the team. What do you want to do moving forward after you wrap up that degree, after you get through this season? What are your plans?
So my degree is in foreign affairs, and that was chosen about 14 years ago, and probably was not as thought out as it should have been when deciding on what I wanted to do, because I decided what I wanted to do was play baseball. So that was less important than my major, which was probably not the right way to think about it. But when I talked to Coach O'Connor about doing this, it was, hey, look, you mind if I try it out? Like, I've always had some interest in college baseball and seeing if that's a route I want to go. And the thing I know the most about in this world is baseball. So I really love being able to help guys get better and doing the coaching part. Obviously, this schedule and this lifestyle is a busy one. I have 2 boys at home that are 4 and that are 2. They're most important to me, and being able to be there for them. So still kind of trying to go through that process of, all right, how willing am I to be gone the hours that it takes to, be a college coach or professional baseball coach or anything like that. But my wife has been great helping me try to figure out exactly what I do want to do. But we've got a few things in the background, that jobs to potentially apply for. So still working through it, not exactly sure, but we'll see what happens.
All right. Well, before we let you go, it's become tradition that whenever we have a guest on, we throw a trivia question at them before we let them go. So I've got one for you. You mentioned earlier that you were one of 8 guys who got drafted in 2011 on that team. You were one of 5 in the first 10 in the top 10 rounds. Can you name the other 4 guys who were picked in those top 10 rounds in that 2011 draft?
All right. Danny Holton, obviously.
Yep.
Steven Proscia.
Yep.
Will Roberts.
Yep. One more.
And Tyler Wilson.
There you go. You got it. Can you name all 8? Can you name the other 3?
Ooh, I can. If I would have forgotten Tyler Wilson and he would have heard this, I would have been killed. So I'm glad I didn't miss it. All right, let's see. John Barr.
Yep.
Let's see.
Pitcher and a catcher.
Okay, Kenny Schwab.
Yep.
And Cody Winarski.
There you go.
Let's go.
8 for 8 if you include yourself. All right, there you go. Nailed it. All right, well, John, thanks for hopping on here with us. We really appreciate it, and glad you didn't skip class to do this.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
We can work around your class schedule if you want to come back on next week. But that's going to wrap up another edition of 1186, the podcast. For John, for Scott, for Andrew, and myself, I want to thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time on 1186, the podcast.